And if you do that, essentially you're going to end up being judgmental toward your own judgmentality. And anything you're self-judgmental about, you're also, whether you like it or not, and no matter how hard you try to not do it, you'll also be judgmental toward other people. So if you've noticed yourself being judgmental about your judgmentality, which could either be, it could either be, kind of being ashamed of noticing that you're judgmental. Oh, yeah, I am, do that, and I feel bad about that. What's wrong with me for being so judgmental? Or you're congratulating yourself on not being judgmental. Both of those are still more judgmentality. And even if you would like to only apply this to yourself and not other people, too bad. It won't work. So the reason to be non-judgmental is just because it doesn't reflect the truth. Because judgmentality says essentially, this person is fundamentally different from me. They're doing something, I wouldn't do that. So this leads into a kind of a debate in social psychology between what's called dispositionism and situationism. Dispositionism says people make choices based on their disposition. Some people are just good, some people are just bad. Situationism says no, it's the sum total of all of our, it's the situation that causes us to choose a certain thing at a certain time. The external situation and the internal situation. And so they cite a lot of research that backs this up. And so I'm just going to tell you one little piece of research and then open it up to questions. So they divide the so this experiment is done on seminary students, people studying to be ministers or priests or something. And so they divide them up into 3 groups. And they say to the people in the first group, well, they say to everybody, you're going to be delivering a lecture on the Good Samaritan story in the Bible. And the people in the first group, they're all told separately, not in a group, right? So each person in the first group is told, oh my God, you're supposed to be there already. Everybody's waiting for you. You're 10 minutes late. Hurry over there. The second group, the people in that group are told, oh, the lecture's starting in just a minute. You better hurry up, but you'll make it on time. You'll be fine. The third group is told, well, the lecture's not starting for half an hour, but we're done here, so you might as well go over there. Okay, so it's done one-on-one. So the seminary student's walking over to the place where he believes that he's going to be giving the lecture. And on the way, there's an actor who's been hired to lie in a doorway moaning in pain and asking for help. Just like in the Good Samaritan story in the Bible. Now, you'd think that they could be a little less obvious about it. So, in the story of the Bible, it's right, there's this guy, who's been beaten up by robbers, and he's lying outside the road, and first the Pharisee comes by, the religious scholar comes by and just walks past him, doesn't help him. The second one walks past him, and the Samaritan, who's not a religious scholar at all, does help him. And so he's good, right? So if you read the story, you think, okay, that means he did that because he is good, a good Samaritan. Well, so what happens in this experiment is that everybody in the first group walks right by the poor guy lying in the gutter. In the second group, a few people do help him. And in the third group, almost everybody helps him. So does that mean that, right, so, and there was a large enough randomized thing so that you know that the reason that the first group didn't help him and the third group did isn't because the first group was bad people and the third group was good people. It was because of the situation. And so expand this to look at anybody who's doing something that you think is just awful. Well, whoever it is, Dick Cheney, or now I've got a true story about Dick Cheney. Yeah, a friend of mine who's a veteran, an Army veteran, he's just a beautiful man. He's like wants to set up like healing circles for veterans and stuff. And one of his Army buddies ended up serving as Dick Cheney's personal chef. You know, one of his hired help. And you know how you can tell the quality of a person by the way they treat the help? Well, so this guy says Dick Cheney was the best employer he ever had. Wow. Treated his staff respectfully, looked them in the eye, treated them as equals, and was just an all-around decent, good guy to work for. Wonderful human being. And my friend, who's like, you know, totally Veterans for Peace and stuff, I mean, he just had a lot of trouble taking that in. Dick Cheney, man, like, you know, he's like Darth Vader himself. There he is, you know, treating the servants with humility and respect. So anyway, so yeah, so like, you know, you look at somebody and who's doing something reprehensible. I mean, even the word reprehensible. And this is another habit of separation, right? You see somebody speeding through the residential neighborhood. How could he? There's a bunch of kids here. I would never do that. I would never do that. But guess what? Yes, you would do that.
You do that.
Yeah, you do that, right? Yeah, you would do that if you were them, if you were in the sum total of their entire experience. So really, it's just, so judgmentality is denying that truth. It's just simply denial of the truth. And it's a form of separation. And therefore, it's not healing. And it's not healing if you are a healer, you know, and say you're counseling obese people and you know, thinking that this person has a problem with self-control, you know, there's a problem with them, they're greedy, they're bad, and if you're coming from that, you will not heal. You will not be a force for healing. Or if you want to heal society and you want to heal people of their profligate habits, their big ecological footprint, and the social, ecological consequences of their lifestyle, if you come into it with that underlying assumption, no matter how hard you try to communicate nonviolently, it's not going to work because they're going to detect it. They're going to pick up on that you think you're better than they are. And how do you respond to people who think that they're better than you? You know, not very well. You're not going to listen to them. So simply as a matter of tactics, as activists, if you try to change someone's behavior, either even with that attitude or explicitly by saying, you know, you're bad. Look what your lifestyle is doing. What's wrong with you? You should be ashamed of yourself. Basically, you're assuming that they don't want to do the good thing, and you're going to have to force them into it. You're going to have to scare them into it. You're going to have to shame them into it. That's not healing. And it's not effective. And it's a use of force. And so therefore, it's coming from this story of separate self, where you live in a universe of force and mass, and the only way to change things is by applying a force, because they're separate from you. So the understanding of oneness doesn't come from there. The understanding of oneness looks at somebody and says, I know that you want to do the right thing. I know it. And here's an opportunity. Here's an invitation to do that. I think that Occupy Wall Street needs to understand this, you know, with the way that they characterize the 1%. The system isn't working for the 1% either. They live in the paradise of financial independence. And people get mad at me. Like, I get hate mail when I put this out there. You know, how can you say it's not working for them? You know, so-and-so with a 65-foot yacht, you know, and he hired Sting to sing at his birthday party, and of course it's working for him. But you actually get to know these people, and they're fucking miserable.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, yeah, he has a 65-foot yacht, which is kind of a phony compensation for the fact that his son is addicted to heroin, you know? Or his daughter is autistic. I mean, the ravages of separation invade every fortress, every personal fortress. You can't keep them out. Of course you can't keep them out, because what you do to the other, you are doing to yourself. And that's the new golden rule. No longer a golden rule, but a golden reminder. The golden rule is, you know, do unto others better. Do unto others as you do unto yourself. But the golden reminder is, as you do unto others, so you are, in fact, doing unto yourself. So, anyway, questions?
So how would you work with Monsanto?
Okay, how would I work with Monsanto? I mean, it would depend on, do you have a relationship with someone in Monsanto?
No.
No. Yeah, do you have a specific thing? Like,
Well, I mean, I see them as one of the most evil corporations, and that's my judgment.
mm-hmm.
You know, there are a number of farmers in India who've committed suicide. And
Yeah, I know all about Monsanto.
yeah.
Yeah. Right, so maybe you're in a situation with a Monsanto executive. Yeah, I mean, I have to make a whole hypothetical situation. But
are you kind of asking, I don't know that she's asking personally, but like how to, you know, like if Monsanto is the evil.
See, like you'll know the right thing. There's almost a magic to it. Like the right words, when you're in that frame of, I know that you want to do the right thing, but you're blocked. I know that you're here to give a gift to society, but you're afraid. You have these pressures on you, those pressures on you. Like when you see that person that way, then you understand them, and then you will know what to say, how to act. It doesn't necessarily mean being nicey-dicey with them.
So you're saying you have to have a personal relationship with them, and in order to change policy?
You have to be speaking from some kind of understanding. Now, I'll tell the story of my friend. Sorry, Judith, about you hearing everything twice now. But, my friend in Oregon. So the town was one of the telecom companies wanted to put a big new cell phone tower in town, and so they wanted to stop that from happening because of the health effects. So they go to city council with a proposed ordinance to ban cell phone towers from town. City council is made up of 6 very, very pro-business Republicans and 1 very, very pro-business Democrat. There is no way in hell they're going to vote against cell phone towers. They have always voted pro-business. They have no idea. These are not alternative people. They have no idea that cell phones are even dangerous. Okay? So my friend had a choice of strategy. Either we can go in there and try to kind of force them into supporting us by scaring them electorally. You know, if you don't vote for our proposal, we're going to mobilize, we're going to go take it to court, you know, we're going to do this, because we know that you really don't want to do it, therefore we have to force you to do it. Or they could come in and pretend that this is a person who really wants to do the right thing and needs the right information to be able to do that. And that's what they decided to do. And he said, we went in there being deliberately naive. You know, deliberately seeing them as really nice people, really caring people, wonderful people, and just spoke to them from that place. And the council voted unanimously to ban cell phone towers. Yeah. Republicans.
They're humans too.
Yeah. And he said the one guy was deliberating, like they voted, and the one guy was just, he could see his struggle. He spent like 2 or 3 minutes before he voted in favor.
So that's skillful means.
Skillful means, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
Just wondering how you're handling your own transition to the gift culture and living more in the gift. You know, I just know my own struggle of not very interested in the monetary system, and yet it's still so pervasive both out there and in myself. And yet I know that I want to live in this new culture, new reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because that's a really practical piece that can actually be useful to people in a practical way. How many people here are artists? Whoa. How many people are healers? Okay, how many people are musicians? Okay, like pretty much everyone in the room here. Good. So, okay. my transition. Okay, so, you know, I wrote this book. I wrote The Ascent of Humanity. I'd written another book before then, The Yoga of Eating, you know, and I thought, okay, I really want to do what I love. I don't want to get some job, I want to do what I love. So I'm going to have to make it work. So from what I knew, like, you know, I read a little bit out, okay, I got to self-promote. You know, and I got to put it out there. I've got to make it seem like really valuable information and then sell it to people and do all this stuff, you know. And so I kind of tried that. And it didn't work at all. As a matter of fact, I ended up going bankrupt. Now, either that was because I'm not very good at it, or it's because my heart really wasn't in doing that. I never really wanted to do it, you know, and I was kind of resisting myself. But anyway, so I went bankrupt, and it just so obviously wasn't working. And even after it should have been obvious that it wasn't working, I still kept trying to do it. And I just got harsher and harsher messages that wasn't working. And so finally I'm like, okay, I give up. I'm going to do it by gift. So that's my not too inspiring transition. It wasn't like, you know, that I had some kind of, you know, noble impulse, you know. It was because it wasn't working. So I transitioned to a gift model where I put, so for the books I put everything online, and I've learned not to say free, say as my gift. Now, a principle of a gift, in a gift culture, you know, you give, but you don't specify what the return gift is going to be. And you don't say, I'm only going to give this to you if you give me even more in return. And if you don't, I'll sue you. I'll take it. I'll confiscate your house. You know? That's not a gift. A gift is you give it out, and then you let the recipient determine what the return gift will be, if anything. And that feels so much better that way. And so that kind of got me over this conundrum, which I'm sure all of the artists, musicians, and healers in the room feel, which is when you're doing something that's sacred to you, when your work is something sacred to you in some way, how do you make a living at it when any amount that you charge is, if you charge any amount, that's too much.
Too much or
Because
not
you're not
enough.
doing it right.
And not enough.
And not enough.
Yeah.
It's too much because you're not doing it for the money. You want people to accept this. So any amount's too much. Any amount's too little because it's reducing something sacred to something finite. And you're putting a price on something, and it's more valuable than just some price, right? So if it's too much and too little, the only thing you can do is to give it as a gift and let the recipient determine what to give back. And so that's how I do it. So the books, you know, you can buy a book here. I keep it, sometimes actually I'll say, you know, pay whatever price you want to for the book. But usually I just sell it for the cover price. But, you know, if you feel like you want to pay something different, you can do that. $1,000, $2,000. For Saturday's day-long seminar, you know, we had cost self-determined with a $25 deposit, because I've learned that if you don't have a deposit or some ritual by which people they're communicating to their unconscious that I'm doing this for real, this is important, this is valuable, then everyone shows up late, you know, they don't come committed to it, they treat it as a throwaway. Now the ritual wouldn't have to be monetary, but it has to somehow communicate commitment. But then once they come, so then we had a basket of money, and so price is self-determined, so if you feel that $25 was too much, and it doesn't accurately reflect your sense of gratitude, value, and propriety, then, you know, take some back. If $25 feels like it was too little for this life-changing seminar, then you can put more in this box here. Now, actually, I didn't say that, because one thing I've learned to avoid is begging, you know, and any kind of hook or any kind of coercion, but just to let it stand for itself. But on the other hand, you can't just not mention it at all, because people have so many hang-ups about money, and we're so alien to gift culture. So I think it's important to kind of put it out there. While I'm at it, actually, there's a $10 suggested donation here. If you put that in there thinking, you know, I really don't want to do it, but what do people think? And you know, if that felt like not the right amount, maybe 0 feels like the right amount. Then I'll encourage you to take some out on your way out. And if it feels like too little, then put some more in. And the feeling to look for is the feeling you get at a wedding when you take just the right gift. There's such a thing as giving too much. Like if you go to a wedding of somebody you don't even know that well and you give them a new car, you know, it's like, that's kind of inappropriate. You're like you know, it's almost an act of aggression. Because it's like, I'm going to obligate you big time. So there's an art to giving the right gift. And in gift cultures, which was every culture up until now, often this art took on a very elaborate, sophisticated form, where there's a kind of a dance back and forth. In Taiwan, it was like that. You know, I would go to somebody's house, you know, and they would offer me dinner, of course, offer me dinner. So I would have to lie and say, oh no, I couldn't possibly, I already ate. Because there's like, it's not actually a lie, it's a coded language. And then they would say, okay, well, how about just some tea? Now I can't refuse that, even if I don't want it, because that's an insult to not accept anything. And in gift cultures, to refuse a gift is an insult. Because it says, I don't want to be part of your circle of self. I don't want to be part of this circle of more for you is more for me. Because that's what it is in a gift culture. Unlike a monetary culture where something bad happens to you, that's one less competitor. In a gift culture, something bad happens to you, that's one less person who's going to be giving me gifts. If the best hunter in the tribe gets hurt, everybody is worse off. If the best musician gets hurt, if the best water finder or tracker gets hurt, right? Everybody's worse off. So, where was I with that?
Tea.
Dinner.
Tea. Thank you. Right. So, an insult to refuse a gift. In some of the Viking sagas, like you would get killed if you refused a gift. And there was one where the guy gives the other Viking a very, very lavish gift, and he has to kill the giver. Because you know, otherwise he would be in a lower position and dishonored. So anyway, so yeah, okay, so no, yeah, okay, I'll have some tea. That would be wonderful, thank you. So then the tea comes with a sumptuous array of food, you know, and so I can't eat very much of it, so I eat some of it, and would you like to take some of this home with you? And so, like, it's a very subtle social language that creates ties in just the right kind of tie. And you can kind of, you know, choose how connected, how much of a tie do you want with that person? How much do you want to owe them? So to receive a gift can be considered an act of generosity. Because it says, yes, I'm willing to owe you. And you notice in suburbia, people don't want your gifts. They want to not owe you anything. I don't need any gifts. And so there's a pretense of not needing anything, of being independent, which is part of the separate self. I can take whatever I want. I don't need anybody. Okay. So, thanks, Troy. Yeah.
Well, it makes me think of a circle that I belong to, and the women love to give presents, and they're all horrible plastic tchotchkes from China. And I've had to just say, no, I cannot accept these gifts. And what I'm hearing is like, I've created an alienation with these people that I care for.
Yeah.
And I can't participate in more plastic crap from China.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
It's
like
really...
when someone gives me like a slice of disgusting cake. Cake. You know? As soon as I eat it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even because of sugar. I just don't like cake. You know?
Yeah.
But this is a good, I don't know, Judith, do you have any suggestions for that kind of situation? Judith's a NVC expert.
What does that mean?
Nonviolent
Nonviolent
communication.
communication.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to weigh in on this.
See, there we go.
That is yeah. So I would probably, yeah, just say thank you so much, and just, you know, everything that are you the person?
It was me.
That was you, okay. Yeah. You know, everything that comes to you is, I want to believe anyway, that it's all a gift. Every phenomena that occurs in your field is a gift, and it might look like a gift, literally, but it might not be a gift. It's just like you have to kind of, and it might be a different gift than it looks like.
So like, she's saying that like that whole situation might be a gift.
Right.
That you could create some kind of change or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
but
I've talked with these people. I've talked about the economy of buying from China and blah blah. You know, I could go on. I've done it for years. And this year, I just said no, I can't do it.
Yeah, sometimes it's appropriate. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's many things. I mean, like wanting to create social bonds is one motivation, but you have other motivations too.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it also might be another opportunity for skillful means. You had a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a UCD student, UC Davis, and I'm currently,
Can you talk louder?
yeah, and I'm a UC Davis student, and I'm part of the Occupy movement there. And one of the things that's characterized its growth and development on the Davis campus is a lot of anger.
Yeah.
A lot of being angry at our chancellor and at the police for mishandling the situation.
Yeah.
And wanting those people to just go away. And that doesn't seem feasible to me because they're part of this community and they're not going to go away. And how can we make a new community with them and kind of weed out that separation and that anger in our own community that we have created?
Let me just say that I feel really happy that someone in the occupied community there is having the thoughts that you're having. You know? I mean, I think even just pointing it out to people, you know, there's a lot of anger here. When you bring something into awareness, you make healing available for it. And just to bring those sentiments to your community there, I think that's like a really good start. I think it's also necessary for people to pass through a stage of anger. Because what's going on before the anger is depression. You're living in a world of ubiquitous wrongness. But, and on some level you know it, but all of the messages that surround you say, no, 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 things are fine. The problem must be with you. If you don't like it, the problem must be with you. Imagine you're on the Titanic, and you see an iceberg up ahead. And you're like, hey guys, we're in the North Atlantic. There could be icebergs. Isn't that an iceberg up there? Something's really wrong here. And everyone's like, what's your name? Roxanne Hattrick. Everything's fine. You know, look, here's the band playing, you know, here's the party over here, here's the dance, here's the game of shuffleboard, you know, everybody's fine. Everything's fine, what are you worried about? And so you doubt your own perceptions then. And yeah, maybe the problem is with you. You know, we're on the Titanic here. But, so there's this voice that says, come on, Charles, could it really be that bad? Could the deserts really be spreading that fast? Could there really be radioactive waste in leaking barrels that are just starting to leak, buried all over the country in secret sites that even the authorities have forgotten about? Like, could there really be genocide in Sudan right now? Like, really, Charles? If so, then why isn't everybody in an uproar about it? Why are people still talking instead about Kim Kardashian or whatever her name is? Right? Like the fact that people are obsessed with celebrities and sports implicitly says things are fine. Because if they weren't fine, then people wouldn't be thinking about sports. Right? So that's just one way in which we get this message that things are fine. Ergo, the problem is with you. Something is wrong with you. You're not well adjusted. So we walk, I mean, in school too, you know, like people have the sense that life isn't supposed to be this way. You're not supposed to wake up Monday morning dreading your week, hating Monday, and doing things that you don't care about for external rewards. Life's not supposed to be that way. I remember feeling that so intensely in school, sitting in a classroom, like I'm not supposed to be locked in here, and have to raise my hand to discharge bodily functions. But nobody was echoing that back to me. Nobody was coming to the assistance of the truth that I had in my heart, so that I myself doubted it. You know, maybe something's wrong with me. And so it's said that depression is anger turned inward. So then you're offered. So from that place, anything that liberates that anger and directs it outward is healing. And so I think it's a necessary stage to go through. So the thing that you can do then, but that's just a stage. When people stay in that stage too long, you can see the results. They get bitter, they get stuck in their anger, and they can't get anything done. You know, it's not actually a very productive place to be. So what you can do then is be aware of people who they're kind of getting done with that, you know, and they're ready for what comes after anger, which would be compassion and an inward journey. You know, what's the investigation of what do all of these people outside of me, what do they mirror in myself, and what in me is reflected. How am I? How is there an inner chancellor in me too? How do I enact these roles that everybody's set into? So that the next stage is the spiritual work. And then after that, once you've gone through that, and these things are clear, then you're back, so kind of back and forth. Then you're back in the public realm again, doing activist work and helping other people go through this. So I guess 4 stages. Yeah.
I have a 13-year-old grandson. How do you engage teenagers in this sort of conversation? How do you, it's Christmas time, they want stuff, right?
Yeah.
So have you found a way to engage teenagers?
No. Next question.
How old are your children?
15, 13, and 7.
Oh,
Yeah. You can try lots of things, none of which work.
Is that a necessary stage too?
No, actually, like I'm feeling really, really happy that someone's grandmother is saying that, because my kid's grandmother is like, you know, hoisting like the goddamn Christmas tree, you know, with the goddamn presents underneath it, you know. I can't help but lapse into profanity when I think about Christmas morning, you know, and I'm sure baby Jesus would be appalled. But so yeah, so maybe you could, maybe you could, like, so say it's a toy. You could say, you know, that toy is made by children your age, working 12-hour days. Would you still like me to get it for you?
Vote for
I talk to him like that. And
Yeah.
he's really introspective and thoughtful, and so I actually hadn't considered that, but he is open to reality. So
Everything's a pedagogical opportunity.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're again referring to skillful means, you know.
Right.
I talk to school classrooms sometimes, and what I always point out the elephant in the room, which is the fact that you're all in this room and you don't want to be here. You know, like, if you don't talk about that, then you really can't connect. I find, I can't.
Well, I have a question, but before I would say, I'm a sub and I often say that. I say, there are schools where we don't have these roles. I'm sorry that we are stuck here, but I do have a magic trick I'd like to show you as soon as we take roll. And so, in other words, we still have to do these things, and the faster we do them together, then we can get to the fun stuff. But my question for you is, I'm thinking about Sierra Club and their legal battles, and they've done a lot of good in the country, in the world, in this country, in this state. And but they were very, very combative to get these things done. But then I remember that their slogan is enjoy and protect.
Yeah.
Makes me sad to think of all their effort. But anyway, so what they do is they get people out in to have a relationship with nature first, and then they can tackle the big things, and they bring secretaries of the interior on a river rafting trip so that he can see what would be lost.
Yeah.
But there's so many areas. It's not just conservation. There's so many things. Weston Price. There's the international. There's so many things to work on. How can we be non-judgmental with these people and not hate their guts for what they're doing, and get the results that we know we could get?
Well, simply by recognizing that judgmentality isn't going to help you. It's not an effective strategy.
Well, the legal battles that Sierra Club had were very judgmental. So I'm saying that did work.
Well, how well has it worked? Today, it's 2011. The Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, they were passed in, 1972, 73? For a while, it looked like we were on the right track.
Yeah.
And since then, it's been sporadic victories against a tide of defeat. So I don't think it's actually working very well. I do think that I'm not opposed to confrontation and standing up and protect what you love. And people doing things like Julia Butterfly Hill, I'm not against that. It's not just sitting back and hoping that somebody's going to turn nice. But I don't think the strategy is working. I like some of one of the beautiful things that came out of UC Davis, I thought, after the pepper spraying, was the silent vigil. It's like we're just going to, and I don't know what it was coming as. Are we going to shame you or what? But that tactic, we're just going to witness you because we know you want to do the right thing. And we're going to hold the space for you to do that, and we're watching you. And you're saying we're going to ally ourselves with that part of you that wants to do the right thing too. Because we need help. I need help to do the right thing too, because I have all of these internalized voices of separation also. And I can only stay in the gift or stay in my belief in a more beautiful world with the help of people around me. Like even giving this talk, sometimes there were a few moments where I was really okay, is this working? What am I doing up here anyway? What good is it? I'm just spouting out hot air. I have this voice, And then I look at Sue, she has a big smile, and I'm like, I need that. I'm not like some, not like some person, some guru who's crossed the river and now I'm bringing other people across. Like I said, enlightenment is a joint effort. Enlightenment is a collective project. It's a team sport. Yeah. Quote Thich Nhat Hanh again. The next Buddha will be a Sangha. Spiritual community. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is kind of part comment, part question that came out of a little conversation we had during break. And it really focuses in on this challenge of transitioning from money-based, self-supported, work, and how do we transition into a non-money-based, or a gifting, as you say, which may eventually be thrust upon us. Who knows if and when the economy is going to collapse? So the thought that came out of our conversation was, and I myself have difficulty with generating local connections and work within my local area. So if maybe bringing the money more locally, and at the same time, using the gifting process to increase connections that can therefore promote our wares or our skills more locally. So basically that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different structures and systems you can cultivate. That reminds me, I didn't finish the thing with gift culture, did I? Oh, kind of I did. Like, the thing about, trusting the recipient to pay whatever amount feels right. Like, I was just to finish that one off, artists, musicians, and healers can do that. By saying, and the wording is important, but by saying, you give whatever feels right to you. You could have a suggested amount. You could have, you could charge for fixed costs, and if if you have material costs. So there's lots of different ways to do that. And that's one way, is to use money as it stands now in the spirit of a gift. Now another thing would be to have local currencies, time banking, things like that, where, I don't know, is there a time bank here?
Yeah. Yes, there is.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a way to, really what money is supposed to do is it's supposed to bring gifts and needs together. It's supposed to facilitate the meeting of gifts and needs. And it's doing a pretty poor job of it right now. Because there's so many unemployed people who have gifts to give, and so many needs that need to be met, and so many gifted people doing stuff that society and the planet don't even really need. So it's not working very well. So you can create other ways of bringing them together, like gift circles and time banks. And I think that time banks are kind of a transitional step, because in a real community you don't have to keep track and quantify it, because everybody kind of knows who's been contributing, who hasn't, and because people tell each other, people tell stories about who's giving what to whom, and especially if they were very moved by it. And so everybody knows there's a social witnessing that happens. And so eventually, and a lot of time bank folks tell me this, that eventually people start doing stuff for each other without even marking it down in the computer. And so a real gift culture emerges. So I think there's lots of different kinds of action that can cultivate the community.
But it almost feels like, I don't know if other people share this, but that I'm so tied to my job that 90% of my energy really, I have to do my job because of college, because of student loans, because of blah, blah, blah. And to actually, how can I wean myself?
Okay, that's a good one, yeah. Yeah, I get that question quite often. Okay, the first thing, well, this transition doesn't have to be hard. So if it feels like quitting your job is something that's just like, honestly speaking, you're afraid to do that right now, then I would say listen to that. What if it's easy? That's a new mantra I've been using, courtesy of Helen Thomas, I think that's her name. She told me about this mantra. What if it's easy? Like, what if your job that you have right now is serving an important need of yours right now, to feel secure? Like, let's respect our needs. It's okay, and then trusting that. So really, like on a very deep level, the revolution that we're undergoing is a return to self-trust, rather than the war against the self. So maybe you have all kinds of, ethical voices, ecological footprint voices, all telling you that you should leave your job and throw caution to the wind and trust the universe. But maybe if you just really trust what you want right now, you're just not ready to do that. And so you trust that and accept, perhaps even accept that that job is a gift. And then, so you're cultivating a habit of self-trust. So when the moment comes where it is time to leave your job and there's another opportunity there that bridges you, and there's an opportunity, that habit of self-trust kicks in and you trust that opportunity too. I think that the transition, like, yeah, we're talking about transition here. The transition is not, doesn't have to be hard. You know, it can be graceful. It can be, doesn't mean that no courage is required, but it means that each step is maybe just at the edge of your courage, but not past the edge of your courage. It's not some torture session, you know, that where living your bliss or is outside what you can do, you know. So you can just kind of trust the process, I'd say. Yes. Yeah.
I'm so flooded with so many responses that I just feel like, one of the big things that I just heard when you said about the gifting economy is I just Kindle for my birthday, and it's an amazing thing for me to have a library that I go. And so one of the things is there's these free spiritual books on there. And there's one woman who I love who, just for $2, I think, in a book. And what I feel is that the difference, if we're moving in, is the difference from being in a sea to being sea mammals to being land mammals. You know, the difference that we're in the revolution right now of perceptual change is that significant.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what we're doing even now today is we have a dialogue that's really anchored in the past moving into something that's very unknown. And we get some tastes, and they're just little bits of visionaries. But it's like moving right now, we're kind of poking our head up above the sea, and we've got seaweed all over us, and we're talking about money. Money is not a separate thing. It's energy. It's all energy. And one of the people that I love, this wonderful spiritual teacher, says, and it's actually Gina Lake's husband, and I got it free on YouTube. It was that he says that we think that love and happiness comes towards us. It's actually just being in our essence, and it naturally flows out of us. And that creates this dynamic of change. And I was working to get a raise, and I was struggling and suffering. I'm a choir director at an Episcopal church. I'm a non-dualist in an Episcopal setting. And I am passionately in love with my job, and it seemed very unfair to me that I was paid so much less per hour than a priest. And I mean, like 5 times less. And I'm really, really good at what I do. I have 37 people in my choir. And I've taught people who've never sung a note to sing. And we sing these anthems that are filled with feeling. And they love me. And I haven't had hardly any drama in 10 years. And finally I got some drama because I said, you know, I need a raise. I need health benefits. And it like shook the foundations of the place. But nobody was going to lift a finger to help me. Yeah. And in my supervision, I have a wonderful awakened being who's my supervisor. I'm also a therapist. And she just said, you know, it's magnetics. It's just magnetics. You just don't get there from here. It's like you're in a labyrinth and you can see the center, but you can't get there that way. It's really from a place of really radically understanding what direct experience is. And those people out there in Monsanto or Sierra Club or wherever they are, they really on one level don't even exist. Because what's happening now is happening from this sea change of understanding what's going on in our pores. It's really, there's no place else but here. There really is no place else but here. So we're doing all this by way of the left brain, but it isn't really about that. We're using a part of our brain that's about time and space that's becoming atavistic. You know, we are actually moving into a direct experience of reality where right now, how able am I now to flow into, we really are one. We talk about connection and we talk about all these things, but in actuality, we really right now, energetically, if we were really dropped in, I'm trembling because we're all trembling. You know, I'm breathing you. We're breathing me. There's no me here. And yet, I have this concept of a body. And I'm in a place of concepts, and I'm trying to heal by way of concepts, and there's some value in that. But it's really a kind of a limited value in terms of the grand revolution that's occurring. But what I really heard today that I really loved was when you said all of a sudden, it's like, heck, I gotta do this, so I'm just gonna do it, you know? And I love to do the therapy work that I do. I love to do the choir directing that I do. I love to be able to erupt shaking and talk to you guys here now. And I want to go out and say, come to my free thing and I'll teach you about couples, and then something's going to happen. I mean, all the time I've been white knuckling. I mean, this man's my husband. How do I get Hanana through school, our daughter? And you know what? We haven't ever been homeless yet. And if we were, she just came back from Sierra Leone, where 2/3 of the kids have hair discolored because they're starving. And she put out a letter saying, I need to go and I can't afford it, my parents can't afford it. She didn't even say that. She just said, I'm doing this if you can help. Her entire thing was paid because she's just so in that I give because I love it and it'll work out. And she said, I'm not really afraid of starving now. She says, I don't want to, I'll suffer, but it's really okay because she's made it over that other side of understanding what a real phenomenon it is to be in the moment with love. And I'm going to give.
I think that, thank you. I think that, like concepts can kind of prime us for certain experiences. Stories can, like that one, can prime us even more. But then the actual experience of oneness comes by grace. And more of us are having those kinds of experiences. In the past, after you have one of those experiences, then you step back into your life and into your job, and they kind of, all these social forces pull you back into where you were. But now, enough of us are having these experiences and understanding them, and integrating them, that we can hold each other in that state of trust in the universe, of connection, and amplify the voice of the heart that says, this is how to live, and counter those voices of you're crazy for doing this, you're insane. So we can hold each other, again, enlightenment is a group project, right? We can hold each other in the knowledge of connection. Yeah.
Well, not to be self-serving here, and I'm not a musician or an artist, I'm actually a financial advisor and an economics person who has had all taken from me and my husband due to the banks, but there already is a money system out there. It's private, it's tied to gold, it has no debt, it's global, and it's for this situation that we're having now. Here's gram gold right here. And one of the reasons I'm here today is how you bridge that, how you bridge from this cash society that we have that's so tearing people apart to this gift society, which I think in my heart we need to have without people having to lose everything along the way that they've worked for, which is what's happened to my family.
Yeah.
And we can rebuild. That's not an issue, but I'll never build it again by having any kind of paper asset that can be taken with the greed that's happening out there. So there are already solutions available, and if anybody is interested in talking to me, I would love to share it with people because that's what we do.
Yeah, thank you. This is the last thing I'm going to say because it's 2 o'clock. But this is a good ending. My book also has solutions like that too, kind of on a macro level, and also I get into a lot of economic nuts and bolts in the book. About a third of the book is about solutions on the kind of policy and macroeconomic level. But the personal stuff's in there too. But one time I was at a conference, and the speaker before me, it was an investors conference, the speaker before me talked about how the money system is collapsing and how people like you are losing their wealth. And he said, really, so only way you can protect yourself when things really fall apart, as they inevitably will, is to buy gold and keep gold and use gold as a currency. And so put your money into gold. Physical gold. Not some certificate that says you own gold, but physical gold in your basement or whatever. And so then it was my turn to speak. I was the next speaker. And I spoke on some similar things, how the money system is, has its own collapse built into its premises. So then question and answer came, and someone said, well, Charles, what do you think about gold? And I said, if things collapse to the point where our conventional currency is worthless, then the worst thing you can have is a lot of gold in your basement. Because men with guns will come and take your gold. It always happens. Usually it's the government. They come and confiscate it all. And if the government's broken down, then other men with guns come and take your gold. So what is real security in a situation of social collapse? Community.
Food. Land. Land that you can grow food on.
People can come and take anything. What can't be taken? Relationships. So the best investment you can make, I said, is to invest in your community. To give as much as possible. Because the gratitude that results, and the community ties that result, and the resilience that results, that is a treasure that fires cannot burn and thieves cannot steal. Nothing can take that away. That can weather any storm. That's what real security is. And that's what security once was in the gift culture, and that's what security will be. That's the only thing that can survive the passage between worlds. We are undergoing a passage between worlds. It's just, when you die, someday you're going to be dying. You're going to be lying there, and you won't be able to take anything with you. Not your wealth, not your status, not your social network, nothing. And I imagine myself at that moment. What's going to really give me joy? What will survive? It will be everything that I gave, everything that I put out into the world. That's the only thing I will be taking with me. You only can take with you what you give. Maybe that's what Jesus was talking about when he talked about laying up treasures in heaven. Only what you give can survive the passage between worlds. So, I'll end with that. Thank you very much.